Welcome to More Than Words, a podcast about treating the whole child brought to you by the Reading and Language Learning Center. I'm your host, Tristan, and today I'm joined by speech-language pathologist Madison Brumbaugh to discuss designing ACC supports with students. Hi, Madison. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tristan?
I'm good. We're so excited to have you here because I'll let you also tell this, but you used to work with RLC, and so it's fun to have you back and on the show.
Yes, it's super fun. I completed my clinical fellowship at RLC right after graduating from my graduate program and decided to stick around in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area following.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Well, we're happy to see you, happy to have you on the show. And I actually want you to start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do now.
Yeah. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I also work as an assistant clinical professor at the George Washington University, where I teach a course as of this semester in AAC, which we'll get into the acronym a little bit later. I teach an undergraduate autism course. This is my second time teaching that. And I also lead one of our clinical tracks at the GW Speech and Hearing Center. So that's really fun for me to take this new role as of just last year as a clinical supervisor and educator. It's something I've always envisioned myself doing, but really enjoyed being also with clients as a speech-language pathologist. So this kind of gives me a little bit of both. I'm still working at the center, still working with clients in some capacity, but also teaching.
Oh, that's so fun. And I feel like a fun mix of things too, right? You get the opportunity to practice what you preach for lack of a better term, right? Like you get the opportunity to do the thing that you really enjoy, but then you also get to share it with other people. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, and it forces me to be up to date in a way that I think is really difficult for practicing speech-language pathologists. If during your workday you don't have designated time for reviewing the evidence or updates in the literature base, because we are evidence-based practitioners and rely on research, but it's hard to read sometimes. A lot of academic literature is full of jargon. It is long, so one article can take you 30 minutes to read or even an hour. So it's, I think teaching and having to prepare the materials forces me to go back and say, okay, what's new? What do I need to make sure that my students gain here? And what do I need to change in my own practice so that I am up to date and aligned with the evidence? Because I know what I was taught 5-10 years ago, but a lot has changed since then.
Yeah. Wow. That is very, very cool. What a fun job or mix of jobs, if you will. It's awesome. So if people were looking to find you, where would they go? Maybe online, or you said you're in the DMV, so physically that's where you are.
You can find me online. I'm on LinkedIn. You can search my name, Madison Brumbaugh, which I'm sure will be in the show notes. And then I'm also on Instagram. I do have a professional Instagram account, and my tag is at mbrummy, so MBRUMIE, a little play on my last name. So you can find me there. I don't post too frequently, but reach out, send me a message. My email is probably also somewhere on the internet, so go for it.
Perfect. Okay, well, yes, those things will be in the show notes, so I'll make sure that folks can find you in all of those ways.
Great.
Yeah. Well, let's hop into these questions. And like you said earlier, you were we'll get into what AAC actually stands for. That's my first question for you.
Yes, great. It's a good one. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. And we typically talk about AAC when we're referencing non-speaking or minimally speaking individuals, but we all use AAC. So the augmentative portion of that term, that really means anything that supplements your spoken language. So right now, I know you can't see me, but I'm using hand gestures as I talk. That's an add-on to my spoken language. And more high-tech versions of AAC might be more applicable to somebody who is using spoken language, right? Words are coming out of their mouth, but maybe they're a little difficult to understand due to or secondary to a diagnosis of childhood apraxia of speech. So I wouldn't necessarily call that person non-speaking or minimally speaking, but they require some type of support in order to get their meaning across, and they might use a high-tech version of AAC, some tool or device. The alternative comes into play when we're talking about replacing or a complete alternative to spoken language, which I do every day when I send an email. I'm not meeting someone face-to-face or picking phone and giving them a call. I'm typing out my message and sending it. So that's a really basic and really common form of AAC, specifically the alternative part of that word. But less common and less commonly seen in the media is maybe that example of a non-speaking or minimally speaking individual who can't access mouth words or spoken language for some reason. If you think of Stephen Hawking, he was someone who used a high-tech device to communicate. But media representation still has a long way to go. Though I will add, just yesterday, Mattel launched an autistic Barbie that has an AAC device accessory, and it looks like what I would expect it to look like, an iPad-like device. For some users, this is what it looks like. Not everybody, of course, but an iPad-like device, picture symbols, an array, and I'm not sure, I haven't gotten my hands on a Barbie yet, an autistic Barbie yet, so I haven't seen, but I'm like, it looks like a grid of words or symbols on her iPad, which is really, really aligned with what I've worked with in my practice.
Oh, that's so cool. I did see, I mean, it came out yesterday. There's no way you could have gotten your hands on it this quickly. I saw it too. I
heard it dropped in stores too, and some people went out right away and bought it. But
well, there you go.
It's on my shopping list.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great description of AAC. I feel like that was a good description of how it works, because otherwise,
Yeah, and it's hard because it's so broad, and it's not just those high-tech iPad-like devices, but it could also be something paper-based, like a graphic organizer that's designed to support the writing or the idea generation of somebody who is an emerging or conventional writer.
Okay, yeah, that's very cool. Well, so today's topic is about designing AAC, which might also be what does that mean? So can you talk a little bit about what designing supports or devices, what does that mean, and how is it different from just handing a student a tool?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these tools are really personalizable. So if we're talking a speech generating device, like something high tech, an iPad, what we commonly use or see for our non-speaking clients or minimally speaking clients is a language application on the device. Maybe it's something that it's a personal iPad and it's been downloaded by a parent or caregiver, or it's something that's funded through insurance and it comes straight from a manufacturer. You're getting the packaged version that the retailer or that the app developers created, kind of to be universally the starting point for everyone. And I see a lot of practitioners pick up the device and just start with that sort of copy-pasted version, when there's so much that you can do to support the user's accessibility of the device, their interest, their motivation to use the device. I mean, things like, so many of them include pictures of people, of body parts, right? They're super robust and can include thousands of vocabulary words. And sometimes those preset versions of the apps are all images of white people. So we need it's incredibly frustrating, because when I was practicing, that was not the majority of my clients. So every time I had an AAC user on my caseload, I'd go in and have to change every single picture that was preset to be white, change it to a person of color or to darker skin tones to reflect that user's identity, because I'm not going to expect a preschool-aged child to see a picture of a white body part and automatically understand that it references the same body part on their skin. I want to make sure that there's as close to a one-to-one correspondence between the image that they see and the real-life representation and as possible, just to support their language learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then another way, I mean, even better than that, is just to take pictures. I mean, I said thousands of vocabulary, which means that's a lot of pictures. But one thing I love to do with AAC users using some of these high-tech systems is to engage them in the picture-taking process. So whether they want to take pictures of their friends and have their friends' names on their device alongside their picture, their teachers, their favorite toys, that's a really fun way to get them involved and design supports that might spark that immediate curiosity or engagement. And of course, selecting the vocabulary is another area where you can really personalize it. If we're talking about something that's light tech or low tech, so something picture-based or something paper-based that doesn't require a battery or something to plug in. I think this concept stays the same, capitalizing on the user's interests and adapting the material to spark that initial curiosity if this is the first time they're using a system or a tool. Like even sentence strips, if we have an early language learner and we're printing out pictures or pictures that form a sentence, like I want blank is a really common sort of sentence starter that can support somebody's initial requesting skills. You touch the I as you say it. You encourage the user to do the same. I mean, anything that involves pictures like this, you can get really creative and words, honestly, like maybe the child's already great at requesting. Maybe you want to practice labeling or describing or telling jokes. There's so much that we can do.
That is so cool. I can't remember if we said this for like the higher tech AAC devices, like you said, kind of with an iPad that has like a grid of pictures. So when the user like presses that, it speaks for them, right? I think that goes without saying, but
yeah, that's typically how it works. Another word or perhaps a more specific term that's used is speech generating device. And that's usually when we're in the world of AAC, high-tech AAC, I think a lot of speech-language pathologists, I'm guilty of this myself, I say high-tech AAC, and that's really what I mean, a speech-generating device. There's other forms of high-tech AAC, like I would include a speech-to-text software program or a text-to-speech software program as something high-tech. But yes, speech-generating devices like the one you described, you have a grid of images. Maybe there's layers even behind those images so that, say, on the first page you see toys, you click that category and you can go a layer deep and get more specific with types of toys. But usually once you find the word you're looking for, regardless of how many layers you have to go, how many layers deep you go, once you find that final destination, the word will populate. It tends to populate on a message bar at the top so that you can see it and the user can see it, and sort of supports those emerging literacy skills and print awareness of text. But then it also says it. And it holds that word or phrase in most cases. Now you can mess with the settings in case this isn't beneficial for your user, but in most cases it holds those phrases up there. So I have some students who like to say the same things repeatedly, like stop, 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 if somebody's bothering them. So they don't have to go and find the word stop repeatedly. They can just hold it in their message bar for a bit and tap that.
Okay, cool. And so like I said, I've seen some of these devices, but I haven't had the interaction. So I appreciate that like description because it makes it make sense to me in my brain and how I would like understand how to communicate with someone who's using an AAC device. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
It's a little hard to wrap your head around when everything is so broad. Like the umbrella is so big.
It's very broad. Yeah. Well, sorry to derail us, but to get us back to what we were talking about, the designing process of this, why is it so important that we include the students or the users in their design process of their own AAC supports?
So what you'll see in literature, and I don't necessarily love this term, it's device abandonment. I don't like the term because I think it puts the onus of responsibility on the user, almost blaming them for abandoning the device, when what really happens in real life is, or at least in my experience, it's the team surrounding the user that has failed to model the device, adapt the device to meet their needs and interests, structure the device in a way that's accessible to them. A lot of factors go into play, and if you don't have a tight and committed support network that is there to maintain use of the device across time, then it's hard for a user or a student to learn it and to continue using it. I mean, I saw a teacher in a public school working with my AAC user on their iPad-like device, and then go off the AAC page or the application and go on to an academic task on the same device. And I had been wondering for so long why my student hated his equipment. We would try every single speech language therapy session. He'd bring it, but he would never want to use it. And when I modeled, he would have a really intense vocal reaction to me modeling. Even if I wasn't forcing him to use it, it's just that felt icky. And after we did some education with the teacher about this being a communication tool, not an academic one, and that there are classroom iPads he can use for that, but I really need this to be designated for him and his communication. Yeah. I saw a big shift. So it's reasons like that. It's really important to incorporate the user in the design, but also to ensure the team is all on the same page. So when I make a change to meet the user's needs or to meet the student's needs, the team is all on board with that change and knows what my next steps are or knows what the goals are for that child.
Oh, that's so good to know, because I think a lot of people would be in the boat as of that teacher and think oh, well, it's a device that you can use to do many things. So of course, I have access to X, Y, or Z on this device. Why not use it? And I don't think people's first thought is, this is what this is for. It's funny. I think people don't think of it as this is their voice. So if you wouldn't use your voice to also do other random rogue things.
You use your voice to communicate. You don't you use your brain, and you use other tools like a calculator to do math. I mean, it's
exactly.
Yeah. And I think that was one example of going off the application to something the student does not enjoy, and it kind of tainting his whole experience with the device. But then you have the reverse scenario where a user is going off the application page when they're in the early stages of learning, and they're going on a game that's on the iPad. And so anytime you want to bring up the communication, it's oh, no. I associate with this iPad with these games I love to play at home. So I kind of want to do that. I don't want to stay on this boring grid with all these words and have a conversation with you. I want to go to Roblox, which is super reasonable. One way that you can get around this is most iPad or iOS-based devices have a feature where you lock the application and and have it password protected so that it stays on one application, usually the communication app. Even if there aren't games on the device, sometimes the camera is distracting in itself.
Oh, yeah.
I walked into classrooms and the students are taking selfies with the communication device. But I do think for users who have more robust language skills, who are not emerging AAC users, accessing other applications is really important so that they can start using email and navigating the internet and doing all of the things. So I like to qualify that with, it depends on the person, but for most starting out, I like to keep that device or that system dedicated for communication, and then we can build on.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great info to have. What can happen if the AAC system itself is designed completely by the adult without any student input?
I think worst case scenario, you have that situation of device abandonment. The student is not interested in using the device. They're refusing to use it, or they're not curious to use the device. There can also be situations where the device is set up for the adult. It makes sense to the adult because, and this hopefully isn't getting too in the weeds, but there are some applications where the preset application version of the application involves a lot of categories. So one folder with all of the toys, one folder with all of the drinks, one folder with all of the foods. Some students may not have that receptive language skill developed where they're making categorical associations. So I could foresee adults saying, oh, I love this application because it makes a lot of sense to me. But for a user, it might not actually be the best one. And it might be really confusing for them to go layers deep into these folders to find a preferred word or their target word. There are other applications that are not organized in that way. So maybe that's a better fit. So just some of these considerations can lead to device abandonment, hiccups or delays in learning language and acquiring language for our emergent users, and just frustration. So I feel like, and then we get broken devices when we're frustrated, and the only way we can communicate is by throwing them, which is completely understandable. But when only adults are designing the device or selecting the device and the user without a lot of additional data or input from the team and from the user themselves, the device doesn't become effective or as effective as it could be.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine if, again, like, this is your voice. If someone picks your voice and you have no choice in the words you get to use, like, that would feel very frustrating.
Or the voice characteristics themselves. I had one user, it was so funny. I had a lot of the applications come with a voice option. So you can pick a voice that roughly sounds like matched in age and gender to the user. And I chose one that I felt would be aligned. And I came in one day and he had modified it so that it was really deep and really slow, almost like scary sounding. But that was his voice. Like,
that was
to
his
me,
voice.
it was really unexpected. But I think, and I had not taught him how to change that. He had explored on his system himself and identified ways to change the pitch and change the rate of speech to match his needs or interests. And it was a really fun surprise when I came in that day. And I didn't change it back because as long as folks are understanding him, and it gave him a little bit more, it made his device more individualized. That's what I wanted to see. Yeah,
that's really cool. He got to, like, give you more of his personality in that way.
Yes. And he was a non-speaking client who I'd never heard vocalized before. So it was cool to see him take that ownership. Such a good sign when you have someone take ownership of their equipment or the tools that they're using, when they actually don't want you to touch it. They don't want you to model on it because that's their property. Like, absolutely. That's fantastic to see.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool. So what are some of the realistic ways, other than, of course, someone going in and designing things on their own, but what are some realistic ways that a student or a user can participate in designing their AAC supports, even if they have, like, limited expressive language?
Yeah. Now, depending on receptive language skills, I like to teach the users early how to edit and how to modify so that they can add their own vocabulary. Because these precept systems come with some of the most common words we use, but they don't come with specific vocabulary that might be related to a topic interest. Like, it's not going to come with, like, obscure historical figures or historical events embedded in the device, or like your SAT vocabulary probably isn't there. But if we're practicing for a quiz and you need to know how to complete a sentence with that SAT word, then you probably need it on your device. Or if it's a topic interest, you just want it there. You want to talk about the favorite toy you have at home, or the favorite movie that you like to watch when you're like on the weekend. So it's important to include users in the identification of that vocabulary, and if at all possible, get them to start adding that in by themselves. Now, you can save the work that you've done. You can upload it to the cloud. So if there's, like, anything ever goes wrong, you can just go back to that prior version. So that's always an option. I love, like I said, getting folks to take pictures. If we're using a picture-based system, using the camera on the device, or if it's something print related, using my own personal camera on my phone, or even selecting, like, clip art together. I've done a couple of, like, just on the fly, I'll have my computer out and I have a student who wants to create something or has a really creative personality, and I'll say, like, okay, let's do this one together. You can choose the color that the person's wearing, like maybe they're wearing your favorite color, pink, today. And it engages the student in a process. And I think when they see that in print after creating it digitally, it's really exciting that you have some kind of product or there's an output to that. Thinking about some of our light or low-tech options, especially when we talk literacy, choice of content, like material or instructional material, is really important because I think it then drives what kind of tools we can adapt and use. So if we know somebody, like say we're doing some shared reading with a student, if we know that they really like nonfiction topics about like animals, then maybe that's material they select, and then it informs what we have as our tool. So we have nonfiction graphic organizers to support their writing or their comprehension. We're using higher tech systems in combination with their reading selections to help them like map some of those key elements of the nonfiction text to like a more concrete visual representation. And there's apps that you can use that help like build stories like this too. Like one is Pictello. So it's it's there are a lot of tools out there, and not all of them, of course, I've used or found that my student or user would benefit from using, but it takes a little bit to do the searching. But once you have something that really links up with your user, it can be amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I love the idea of kind of like designing your own little images. You know, if you have like a free like Canva account or something. You like find something that you really enjoy and you can use as like the little icon for them on their device.
Or
That's
even
very
just
cool.
drawing. I've had students. Every single session I have with pediatric clients and sometimes even adults, I'll have a visual schedule. And I mean, the icons for adults look a little bit more like black and white, copy paste. If I'm just doing them very quickly. But for children, sometimes I'll incorporate them and helping me draw out the visual schedule. So if like step one, what we're going to do today is a greeting, maybe I will ask you to draw like a hand waving or some like two people, two stick figures together. So I think that's another way. There's a lot of imagery in AAC for the population that I have tended to work with. So most of my like getting the user involved from the outset is incorporating them in the selection of that imagery or the development of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love for you to share like an example of how students' preferences or like their choices change the way that their AAC systems were set up. Like you talked about like, you know, animals being like their favorite topic to like read or something like that. Do you have any like fun examples of that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I can think of a couple instances where, so maybe at the onset of my interactions with a child, maybe their paperwork omitted the facts of their languages spoken at home. Sometimes I would have children whose parents would report that the child uses English, but not disclose the fact that at home the families communicate in a language like Spanish. So sometimes this discovery would come out in a meeting, but sometimes it would come out because a child is piecing together English words that combine to sound like a Spanish word. Like, this isn't a real example, probably not a great one, but like, say if the word Mary is one of their icons and the word pose, and if they put those together, Mary pose might not make sense to me as a native English speaker, but if I know the Spanish word for butterfly, mariposa, like, and pardon my Spanish accent, but it might be the key to me that, we need to have a Spanish version that we can toggle to. And for some applications, this is a very quick toggle that the student can go back and forth. But that's an example of like the student showing me something that really necessitated a change. And in his case, the entire application that we needed to add another language here. And it's nice because a lot of the languages you add on are in the same format. So you'll see
that's
like
nice.
the pronoun I and the pronoun yo for Spanish is in the same location. So once the users sort of figured out how to write a sentence in English, if that's where your starting point was, if you go to the Spanish page set, there's not a whole lot that changes as far as location goes. Now, verb conjugations aside, it does get different there and in some other areas, but that's if it was a fun for me example.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, and you'll see students as they're learning the vocabulary on the screen. You'll see students do that, sort of take those what looks like to us as shortcuts, but finding words that sound like other words that might not be accessible to them on their device, and then putting them together. And that's a key to you if you're the only person capable of adding vocabulary. That's a key to that's a word that we should add. They're using it.
Yeah. Wow. Very creative as well. Like trying to just being like, these two things sound similar. And like they make this other word that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. For students that have like lower tech AAC supports, so like you said, like visual organizers, schedulers, whatever, how can those students be involved in that design process for the lower tech stuff?
I hate to say that it's much of the same, but there are some similarities across the board with the like actual design and layout of things. So imagery, like print-based imagery, I would say exactly the same as I shared for AAC, having the student involved in taking pictures, drawing, and then also though organizing. So when it comes to the high-tech stuff, a lot of those preset layouts, we don't shift around too much. Okay. And I haven't been with a user who does, but for a low-tech or paper-based option, that is a possibility. Like maybe you can move these things around on a page. Like a graphic organizer is a really good example because there's often a lot of different components involved, especially if you're using it at an advanced level, like say with a high school user who's on grade level and is working on reading and writing and comprehension, like those kinds of skills. Like you can involve the user in making a graphic organizer that makes sense for them. Maybe a single page version is not accessible because we need large print, or because a single page with lots of text is overwhelming for the user. Maybe because of the size of the text and how condensed it is, it's difficult to read. So we make adaptations based on the user, and a lot of times users can tell us exactly what they need. Or if I see someone struggling, I can say, hey, what's going on in your brain right now? I see that you're stuck. Let's take a pause. Tell me what you're thinking. And a lot of times those conversations, as simple as they sound or as small as they sound, they really or lead to really impactful changes in the design of whatever tool it is that you're using. The user or the student might not always know to ask for what they need. They might have had experiences where asking for what they need in a classroom setting or in a home setting is met with like, sorry, I can't help you. This is what all of the students are using, so we're going to use this. Those like granular accommodations that might not be listed in an individualized education plan might be hard for a student to receive. So I think those conversations, though, for our AAC users, even low tech, are really important because those can be the change that makes all of the difference.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, hey, if there's similar things, like that's fine, right? Like between high tech and low tech AAC. But I think that, like, to your point of where things are organized on the page is great. Like it sounds very like customizable if you're doing something that's maybe on the lower tech side of things.
Yeah, and that was a literacy example, but expressive language, receptive language, picture communication, like individual pictures are pretty common as well for someone who is not able to access a high-tech AAC device. So they'll be printed pics individually, and they might keep those in a binder, and they can organize that binder themselves with like the words that they most want to say or most frequently say or are most captivating to them. Those can be at the top of the list, the ones that they can access first and most readily, and then they can put all those academic words about the topic they hate the most at the back.
Back the book.
So yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. And so we talked about low tech, and so on the high tech end of the spectrum, um, what opportunities exist for students to like personalize the high tech tools? So like vocabulary, layout, features. I know you said you don't change layout a ton, but
Yeah, no, layout you can certainly change. Most of the applications also come with blank space that's
oh, that's
intended
cool.
for you to, yeah, and it's intended for you to add things to that page that
Yeah.
doesn't even have to relate to like how you got to that page, right? Even if
Okay.
it's under a category, you can add your own words. So there is always space for that. I mentioned the example about changing the pitch and the volume even
Oh, yeah.
of, yeah, and that you can change accents for the actual vocal output or the speech output.
Right.
You can change, this is really, I don't want to say uncommonly changed or modified, but I think it's something that a lot of folks don't know is a possibility and don't know the importance or relevance of. But some folks have a really hard time like picking their finger up and then pointing it directly on the icon that they
Oh,
want.
yeah.
So they might do a little drag. You can change the device's settings so that the speech doesn't happen until you release your finger. So say, and you can't, I know the listener can't see me doing this, but like say I'm
Sure.
dragging my finger across an iPad, trying to find what I want, and then I find it, and it doesn't say anything yet, but then I'll release my finger and start again, and once I do the release, the speech output occurs. So
Wow.
there's changes based on fine motor needs, gross motor needs that can happen, and just user preference. Maybe the
Yeah.
user likes it when there's a little bit of a delay or a lag, and we call this dwell time is the technical word, where you have your finger on there for half a second. That's a longer time than it probably seems, or like maybe 0.2 seconds. Again, the preset versions come with no dwell time typically, so it's immediate when you select an icon or when you lift your finger, but you can add dwell time so that when you select, you have to hold your finger for a little bit of time.
Okay.
And these are, yeah, really granular
Yeah. But I
modifications
love
that you
it.
can make. Yeah, to meet, and I've made all of those for different students for different reasons, but
Right.
just to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're going granular because I think sometimes it does look like it's all one thing,
Hmm.
right? Like it looks like it's very prescriptive and like there's one way to do things, but to know that I am not a parent and I don't have, like students or people I work with that use an AAC device, but I'm positive that for someone who is listening to this, they may be thinking I have needed to get my kid an AAC device, but I'm worried about their gross motor skills or I'm worried about them not being able to express themselves the way they want using their device. And so I
Yes.
appreciate you saying all of this because I think it's helpful for people who are like living in the world of unknown right now. And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know if this is going to make anything make sense for my kid or
Hmm.
for the person I'm working with. So don't apologize for being granular.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's fabulous.
I would be remiss if I also didn't add that you get accessories for your equipment. Like
Oh,
there
that's
are,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, outside of just cases, some with built-in speakers, especially if you need like more volume with the speech
Yeah.
output. Say your classroom gets really loud and busy, or you want to be able to take it to a beach or a restaurant, and you need it.
Yeah.
You need that volume. From straps, there's different ways you can carry it, but another really helpful accessory called touch guides and key guards. They're kind of plastic overlays that lock onto the top of the device and
Yeah.
can support the same user I mentioned who maybe does a lot of dragging, but helping them find and isolate that single icon. So
Yeah.
they have that tactile support available.
Yeah.
And for parents like the ones you mentioned who might be thinking like, where do I even get started? Is this even a possibility? I would heavily recommend talking to a speech language pathologist who specializes in AAC. There is a support available, regardless of whatever you think your child might not be able to do because of X, Y, or Z.
Right.
There's in all likelihood, there's a workaround. And that workaround might not be with a high-tech AAC device. It might be with a mid-tech option, like a battery-powered device that's maybe a little smaller or has fewer vocabulary words available. And that's okay. But there's likely a support available that could at least take your child to that next step when it comes to communication.
Oh, I'm loving this conversation because I feel like it is helping people know where they can be and giving people kind of like, hope is the wrong word. It feels aggressive, but maybe comfort in knowing that there are things for them.
Yeah. And I also want to iterate, sorry if this is going on a tangent, but I want to stand on a soapbox just for a little bit and say,
please
ask for a speech language pathologist, ask for a referral. I have observed, this is not a lie, I have observed a session where a pediatrician and a clinical psychologist was diagnosing a child with autism. And when they were giving referrals, they recommended, because this child was really young, they recommended enrolling in school so the child could get speech language therapy. They recommended applied behavior analysis, and that was it. And I was supposed to be a fly on the wall in this situation, and when the parent left for a break, the providers knew I was a speech language pathologist, and they say, hey, like, when would you recommend AAC? And right away, like right now, because this child is non-speaking. We didn't hear any vocalizations, no verbal output. We're writing down that they have receptive language difficulties, and an AAC can be a tool for all of that. Right. So they ended up not referring to an assistive technology specialist, which was extremely frustrating. Also frustrating to see that their recommendation for speech therapy was enroll in a school when there is a time lag when you enroll in a school and you're eligible for services. That process can be long. So I'm seeing this child and I am frustrated and feeling defeated that they're not going to get the intervention that they need. And part of the provider's thinking was, we're diagnosing this child with autism. Autism, that first diagnosis can feel really heavy for families. And it can be overwhelming to get a litany of referrals all at the same time. Sure. But early intervention is important. Yes. Especially in those young years when child language is developing at an insane rate. So getting that intervention early and during that window can make a huge difference in the long run. So not naming names, but if you're a parent and listening to this and you haven't had a referral, it is okay to ask for one for the assistive technology center or specialist in your area, for a speech language pathologist who can provide outpatient non-school-based supports, and love a school-based SLP. I was one myself, and I did AAC. But anytime a child could get services both inside and outside, it was great, because even if it wasn't academically necessary, it supported their generalization of skills to environments outside of school. So to home environments, to church, to community. It was fabulous to see when it...
Yeah. Oh, thank you for standing on your soapbox. I appreciate it.
Thanks for allowing me to.
Of course. And I mean, we talk about early intervention on this podcast all the time. Like, it is so important. And like you said, the childhood language is developing so quickly. It's so rapidly. And so to get in and get things moving is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And not all speech language pathologists know or have education in AAC. It's unfortunately not a required class in the council or the accrediting body that accredits speech language hearing programs. Speech language pathology is like a really broad field to begin with, so it is hard. Yeah. So I would also suggest looking out for speech pathologists who advertise AAC services, because those are the ones who probably have more training, more experience, and are more comfortable with the diversity of the device options, both high-tech, mid-tech, low-tech, that are out there. And they know where to go, what supports are available.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you again for sharing that. So I kind of want to touch on stuff that we do here in a way
Yeah,
with
yeah.
literacy. So how does like designing the AAC device and AAC supports in general with users impact like literacy tasks? So things like reading
Mhm.
comprehension, writing, or even like classroom participation.
Yes. Okay. Well, there are on a lot of the high tech systems, and I know we're kind of skewing the conversation toward high tech, but it's a cool feature that I want to share.
Yeah,
On a
yeah.
lot of the high tech systems, you have keyboard that, of
Hmm.
course, will do the thing you expect it to do. You press A, and it says A, C, which is great for letter naming. But
Right.
then there's also on many of these applications or systems, there's also a phonics key where if
Oh,
you go to the phonics page set, like if it's a G, you'll tap it, and it instead says G, the sound
right,
that G makes. So
right,
it's a really cool feature for our clients who are still building their phonological awareness skills. We want them to be able to blend and segment words and maybe manipulate the sounds in a word. I've
right.
used this with some of my early emergent AAC users to work on their early literacy skills. And it's fun, right?
Yeah.
If I sound out a word in AAC, if I sound out a word like ball, b, ooh, I would expect, or the task might be different than a child who can speak saying ball, just that word.
Right.
It might look like the AAC user going in and finding that icon. So they're not only practicing phonological awareness, but they're also becoming more skilled at using their equipment, which
Yeah.
is a win-win. So it's like a double awesome. But that's, I think, at the early level of phonological awareness. There are also tools or extensions of certain AAC systems that allow lengthier text to be stored and saved in the
Mm,
device for later extraction. I'm thinking of like ProLoco to Go and ProLoco for Text are a couple of brands that are really compatible, and I see users maybe start with ProLoco to Go and then shift over to ProLoco for Text because when their literacy skills develop, it becomes a less laborious option because you're not going through and word by word. You can actually start
oh,
typing more extended utterances,
yeah.
which, yeah, it can be really, really helpful for literacy practice. And then
Yeah.
even just outside of like systems for communication, there are cool tools that when we're working with a child who has difficulty tracking words on a page, there are some tools, and I think Learning Ally, don't quote me on this, but I think Learning Ally is among them, where a textbook is available, or a book, not necessarily a textbook. Sorry, I'm in like university
University
brain
mode.
over
Yeah.
here. But textbook or other books are available, and there's audio that accompanies them, but as the audio plays, the word on the screen is highlighted or tracked so the reader
Oh,
is more
yeah.
capable of following along, which is really, really lovely. So tools like this, yeah, are out there and can support literacy too. And they, again, don't always have to start with the intent of supporting somebody's spoken communication or their
Right.
speech generation, but there's
Right.
specific tools for literacy like that.
Yeah. That's really cool. I was curious, like when we were talking about it this earlier, um, like kind of the literacy portion of things because I'm getting to see folks like blend and segment and like
Hmm.
start to like decode words, and I was like, I wonder how that works on an AAC device. So that's very cool that there's like the phonics keyboards and things like that.
Yeah. And I think like AAC, you can incorporate it into a lot of the same reading activities that, at least those speech generating devices that you might be administering or conducting in a classroom setting, like shared
Yeah.
reading, and you're asking comprehension questions. Ask the AAC user those same questions. I mean,
Yeah.
don't leave them out. So
Right.
they can try answering those questions too. Comprehension questions about their, or like reflective questions about their
Yeah.
experiences in relation to the text. So some of these there are some alternatives, but there are also some like ways that AAC supplements literacy. And I think that is an example of that augmentative or supplemental role.
Oh, that's so cool. What are some like AAC based supports that help students express ideas in writing or
Mhm.
engage more fully in academic work, kind of like you were mentioning with like the comprehension questions and stuff in class?
Yeah. Now I don't know the names of all of these, so just bear with me as I describe them. But I've seen some tools or some applications where students who are not adept at typing, maybe they haven't had that practice or their fine motor skills aren't at a level that supports typing, but there are applications where the student user can write out the word on their iPad, and then it converts it to type font or typeface text. Engaging more fully in academic work and writing, there are additional tools that are available. Speech to text and text to speech is a really common accommodation you'll see on individualized education programs, especially for students who are dyslexic or who have a diagnosis of dyslexia. And those tools are intended to support their access to material, like say, for example, a speech to text, access to responses and ability to respond to questions when the focus of a task is not writing. So maybe the focus of the task is reading comprehension, and we want to know what you gained from the text. We're not testing you on your writing skills. We're testing you on your ability to interpret, analyze, find context clues. So those kinds of tools, and there's software packages you can download. Sometimes they're embedded into a computer or a tablet. Those kinds of tools can be really helpful in engaging the user and preventing that frustration and that barrier to participation. Because how frustrating is it when you're given a math word problem and the focus is clearly math, like this is a math class, but now you have to read, and reading might not be the easiest task for you, as easy as it is for somebody else. So now you in this scenario might benefit from a text to speech reader where the point isn't reading, we're focusing on math and your ability to problem solve. So let's take away that barrier via technology, because teachers are not always available, especially in larger classroom sizes, to do the reading for you. And we don't want a teacher doing the reading for you throughout the rest of your school experience. We want you to build that independence, but independence with a tool is best, right? You don't need handholding, but if you can learn to access the tools that support you, then you can access the material and you can go so much further. And I use tools like this in my day-to-day as an adult without a literacy-related disability. So these are functional for everyone.
Oh, I love that. And I know Google Drive, Google Docs has a speech to text.
Oh, yes.
And I think they've recently done text to speech now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But I use the speech to text feature, Google Docs and Google, the whole Google suite a lot.
Yeah. This is totally like a tangent of mine, but I have an iPad with a pencil.
Yes.
Absolutely love it. And one thing that I think is very cool on the iPad with a pencil is that you can use it to, do handwriting if that is a thing that you're interested in. But then they also have the ability for you to use this pen that converts your writing to text. Is there an AAC version of that?
No, I think that's absolutely under the umbrella of AAC. And for someone who has difficulty typing, say that's the expectation and you're getting your Google Chromebook from school and the expectation is you type. But typing's tricky, and it might be for a variety of reasons, but a tool or an application like that can bridge the gap. And you're still practicing writing. Again, the point of the assignment is still being met. The learning objectives are still being met. But now you have a way to access them and remove any barrier and just give your best work.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 2 more questions for you. I asked you a lot, but let's keep going if you have the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So what mindset shifts do educators and families and family members need to make in order to truly center the students in their AAC decisions? I mean, since they are for that student.
Mindset shift. Okay. Well, you said a really good phrase earlier. You made a really good connection between AAC, especially speech generating type devices, being a child's voice. So that is a very important mindset shift. And sometimes I get a little graphic with teachers, especially teachers who are like taking away a device. And I might say something like, you know, you're basically ripping out their vocal folds. Like if that's what we need to say in order to like make that point across or get that point across, like you are taking away their access to communication by taking away the device. Maybe it's because they're self-stimulating on the device or saying things on the device that aren't relevant to the classroom material. Maybe they're swearing on the device.
Sure.
But I need you to treat that student the same as you would another student who's swearing, like, you know, with their mouth words. So that's, I think, a really important mindset shift that I would love to see a lot of the support team members make, because speech language pathologists, this is drilled into us if we're AAC practitioners, but it's not drilled into everyone else because AAC, again, it's new, it's broad, it's overwhelming. So that is a really important one. I think one thing that I don't see often enough, and I would love to encourage parents to do, is to bring your child to their individualized education program meetings so that they can learn what's going on behind the scenes and who all is involved in their support, how they're intending to support them. And they might not be ready to self-advocate, but they're given a seat at the table. And that can feel really powerful and eventually build to a point where they do feel confident saying, no, I actually don't like this accommodation. I need something more. I need something different. Or the goal, the way that this is written, can you explain this to me in simpler terms and how this is going to look in class? I mean, I think as children, and of course, like your child's age and maturity level or like receptive language skills might determine whether or not this is possible for you, and that's okay. But if you can give them a seat at the table, I encourage you to do so. There is on the back end, as a speech language pathologist working in public schools, I always had that option of marking whether or not the child attended their own IEP, individualized education program meeting. So it's an option, and it's like one of the default options on my forms I used to complete, but it rarely happened.
Rarely. Yeah. And I've heard that advice from like a number of professionals that have come on here and, you know, talked about their niche too. And they've been very different niches. I like this piece of advice. I'm glad you're sharing it. It is brought up time and time again.
Oh, I'm so happy to reiterate. And one more thing. So I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
You can get, I guess this is like not so much mindset shift, but if you value AAC and you want AAC for a user and you're the responsible party, advocating at the school level, advocating in healthcare spaces, you can get an AAC device both ways. Now, from my experience, getting one through the schools takes a little longer, and it's a school-owned device. So say you move a district, you have to give it back, whereas a device funded through your insurance is yours, or it's the user's device. So pros and cons to each, but advocate for both so that you can make that, give access as fast as possible, whichever avenue works the quickest. And then once you get that insurance funded device, you have it.
Right.
You can have the school one too. It's okay to have both.
I love it. So for someone who's just starting out, like kind of like you said, like for a parent or a teacher, what's like a very simple step that they can take to involve their students or their kid more in their AAC supports?
Good question. I would say the most simple step, which I realize in practice isn't always that simple, is making the AAC device just accessible. So oftentimes the AAC devices don't get charged overnight. We forget.
Sure.
Like even if whether it's at home or at school, maybe the child brings it in the backpack and the teacher isn't aware that it was brought to school, so it never comes out. So I would make it a point to check, put it in an accessible location, ideally at the student's desk, show that you value AAC by using it and modeling it when you're interacting with the child throughout the day, during your social exchanges, during learning opportunities, or during instructional time. I mean, in an ideal scenario, every teacher would have an AAC device so they could practice on their own. But I know it's not like a direct getting the student involved, but it's facilitating opportunities for it to happen, and it's demonstrating your acceptance and your value of this as a communication method. And we know, I mean, I forget the raw numbers, but like children who use spoken language get exposed to thousands of words per day in spoken language. But you'll see data that shows like in the academic literature that AAC users get significantly less. And like, I'm talking like only hundreds of words, if that. So the exposure to language is a great way to facilitate more opportunities for engagement with children.
Yeah.
And adult users too. There are adult users. Sorry, so much of this is pediatric focused. That was my specialty. So I tend to default to child when I'm just talking, but no. There are adult users too. But yeah, I was in the public schools. I was a pediatric speech language pathologist. So sorry, folks.
Oh, that's okay. And I mean, hey, for the most part, like we talk pediatrics on here anyway, because as you know, our LLC is mostly pediatric. Of course, we like have the occasional adult that will come through, but you know, you're talking to the right audience.
Yeah.
So this is my final question for you. What is one thing that you wish more people understood about AAC and student autonomy?
Oh, no,
I know, sorry, it's a really loaded question.
One thing I wish people knew about AAC and student autonomy. Oh, two big topics.
You can answer just one.
Okay, AAC is for everyone. That is my one big thing. Okay, second big thing, communication is a human right.
Yes.
So let's make it happen. And if AAC is the way to go, let's do it. But AAC is for everyone. We're all AAC users in some capacity, either part-time or full-time. And as far as student autonomy goes, I mean, they're the drivers of all of this. I mean, without individualized supports, it's almost impossible to meet the students' unique needs. Everybody's different. So I think if I could leave that as the big, my big statement on student autonomy, they're the ones in the driver's seat, or at least they should be. You can be coaching them how to drive. And that's what I see my role as a speech language pathologist working in AAC. You can be the one in the passenger seat doing a little bit of the guiding. Maybe you even put your hand on the steering wheel a couple of times if things are getting out of control. Sure. But and there's an emergency brake, of course. But without going too deep into this analogy, just keep the students in the driver's seat. And I think if more teams were committed to doing that and prioritizing the student voice, we'd see a lot less of this quote unquote device abandonment, and we'd see a lot more expression and learning happening.
Yeah. This has been fabulous. Absolutely
fabulous. It has. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm just excited to have more chatting about AAC on the podcast, because it is something that's big in speech that we just don't have a ton of. So I appreciate you being here and sharing all of the things and letting me ask you a million questions.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you. I cannot wait to listen to the episode.
Yes, it'll be great. Thank you so much to the audience for listening. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a little rating and review. It helps other folks find the podcast, and we'll chat with you next time.